Watch this.
Election day is almost here, but this time around, your ballot likely won't indicate if a candidate is part of a political party. Why? We'll tell you why. Speaking of the election, are campaign phone calls and text messages allowed when you didn't subscribe to them? We're breaking down the legalities of political messaging. And last call for Halloween Town, we're taking a look at the best of the best from the 2021 edition of Halloween in the Gem State. Have you heard the news? There's an election tomorrow, the first Tuesday in November. Of course, 1 year ago, the major storyline was President Donald Trump versus challenger, now current President Joe Biden. This time around, though, your ballot likely includes names that you are less familiar with. This off-election cycle is really focused on city and municipal races. And those are big decisions that oftentimes end up having a more direct impact on your local area. Now, one thing you may notice looking at your ballot tomorrow, or if you've already filled one out and sent it in the mail, municipal candidates, they don't have an R for Republican or a D for Democrat indicator on the ballot. And we've seen your questions on this too. For example, why don't the candidates for Boise City Council just list themselves on the ballot as being a Republican or a Democrat or whatever? Well, in Idaho, that's just not how things work. And today I spoke with two election experts to set the stage for the nonpartisan election cycle we're now in. Election day is almost here.
For some of the particular races, we've seen more activity than we typically see in this kind of, quote unquote off cycle election.
Ada County Clerk Phil McGrain and his election team are already hard at work. As McGrain mentioned, this is an off year in the election cycle, meaning you will be seeing municipal races for things like city council on your ballot. In those races, like for Boise City Council, for example, on the ballot, candidates are not listed as being a part of a political party, like a Republican or Democrat.
Our partisan elections happen in the even years, so most people would think of the president, for example. There really isn't anything in terms of a nonpartisan election. It's just that there are other elections that have been determined to be partisan.
Per state code, Idaho just doesn't designate municipal elections as partisan, meaning candidates do not need to go through things like a political primary vote ahead of a November general election. Boise State political science expert Dr. Stephanie Witt says that move can be traced back to the progressive reformers movement that ran from about the 1870s through the 1920s.
I think the intent of having nonpartisan elections was to ensure the most efficient and professionalized local governments that we could have. And perhaps it's a question in people's minds about whether we still need that today, but the intent was to try to get politics out of running cities and just run them the most efficient and best way possible.
So, does a nonpartisan election prevent a candidate from telling voters that they're part of a political party? Or does it prevent a political party from endorsing a candidate? No, but the party affiliation, again, will just not be indicated on the ballot.
There's no restrictions. A candidate can present themselves in whatever light they feel is going to be best for their candidacy and their campaign. I mean, much like, a candidate may say they're a Boise State fan, declaring themselves a member of one of the political parties could be the strategy they also would employ.
Dr. Witt says this is nothing new to area politics. Take the Boise mayor race in the early 2000s, for example.
I noticed it the most when Dave Beater first ran for mayor of Boise, that a lot of the same volunteers and efforts you saw through the Democratic Party in Boise were helping him to get elected. And he had previously held office in the state legislature as a Democrat. So there was really no ambiguity whatsoever about his party affiliation.
Interestingly enough, Clerk McGrain says during the even year or partisan election cycle, they get almost the exact opposite question.
We get the question of why are these positions partisan? County coroner being a great example, one that we always hear about. And so it's really just the policies that the legislature has set for each of these respective elections.
So again, it all comes down to how the legislature over the years has classified each level of elections for the state of Idaho. And there have been conversations in the past about changing the rules around for municipal races to make them more like the statewide partisan races we see, or the countywide races. Now, there are cases to be made on both sides of the aisle as to why or why not you would want to have a partisan or nonpartisan election at a local level. Just depends on how you see it all. All right, so we've established the nuance of partisan and nonpartisan elections, which leads to this question. Again, are political parties allowed to get involved in these nonpartisan elections? And some of you have reached out about campaign texts and calls that are going out right now. And Laura actually sent us this one, and she sent us a message saying, we received this text message today. We never agreed to get messages from the Ada County Republican Party. We haven't registered to any party for this reason. Nothing but a smear campaign. Are they doing anything illegal by claiming I agreed to this? So that's the message we got, and here's the text message that Laura got. She says, this is what she sent to us, and we actually blocked out the name of the candidate. We're not going to promote or interfere with the candidates. It reads, "Hi, neighbor. This election is crucial. Don't let Boise belong to another Portland or Seattle candidate. Voted to defund the police and raise your taxes 18%. Don't vote for this candidate. Thank you, Nancy, volunteer and neighbor." And then the very end, you can see the whole thing paid for by the Ada County Republican Party. I reached out to the Ada County Republicans to find out more about their system specifically because of the question. We have not got a response so far. We hope to soon. We can say this, though. Political parties, they absolutely can get involved in these nonpartisan elections. However, there are laws about how much money someone can donate, for example, things of that nature. But the First Amendment really spells it out for us. You have a right to free political speech, and that does extend to political parties. There are some limits, though, on those, but that doesn't really pertain to this conversation. Now, the political campaign texts, like the one we just showed you, they do have to abide by FCC rules. And there are two major factors at play. And on screen, we're going to actually have the full detailed explanation from the FCC. But to summarize for you, the details here are about an actual human dealing with the number or a robot dialing it. We're also going to talk about consent here. Let's start with human versus robot dialing. Now, auto calling and auto texting are against the rules. But if it's a real person who is physically dialing the number, then playing an automated message is allowed. And if we transition over some text message rules, it's very similar. Now, they can only do that with a landline phone number. And with a mobile number, you must actually get consent first. And there's a number of ways that these organizations can get your contact information. Some are public record, others can be bought. Some organizations sell their information regularly. As far as consent, though, that can happen when you sign up for something, give up your contact information. And unfortunately, if you don't read the fine print, sometimes when you sign up for a newsletter or a political newsletter, you're saying that you agree to get more messages in the future. Again, specifically in this question, in this case, it is unclear exactly what the Ada County Republican Party did to get phone numbers, to send messages and make calls. And to be fair, it extends beyond what the Republicans are doing. There's also things in this community that are being done by Democrats and independents. It's really interesting to look at all the strategies across the board and compare and contrast. Now, there are several other pretty big questions that will be on ballots across southern Idaho tomorrow, and a big ballot question for voters in parts of Eagle, Boise, Star, Meridian, and Kuna, the $28 million West Ada School District supplemental levy. And it's actually $14 million per year for the next 2 years, and is technically a replacement levy for the current levy. It's actually been in place since 2011 and has been renewed by voters every 2 years since then. And despite rising operating costs, it has remained at about $14 million per year. Now, that money is about 5% of the district's overall budget and is used to help pay salaries and other basic functions of the district. So this may be on your ballot tomorrow, and if approved, the district says that the tax per $100,000 of taxable assessed home value is actually expected to slightly decrease from the last levy. So, for example, if your home is worth $400,000 and the tax assessed value is $275,000, the district says you would pay about $130 per year for the levy. Meaning, if the levy does pass, homeowners will not pay more than they are paying right now. Again, the current levy does expire on June 30th. Other things on the ballot. If you live in Boise, there is a good chance you will see a ballot item about a bond for the Boise Sewer District. And to be very clear here, the ballot question is asking voters to decide how the city and taxpayers should pay for a series of already approved wastewater projects. So these projects are approved. We're just talking about how to pay for them. Now, in total, voters will say yes or no to a $570 million bond to fund these projects. A yes vote means that you're in favor of a 30-year bonding process, and that comes with a monthly bill increase of about $3.64 for the average customer in the district. Now, a no vote on this ballot item means you do not want Boise to bond the project, and you would like to see approved projects paid for in the traditional way, cash. Now, that option would translate to a steeper $19.50 month raise in the water renewal services there. So, you are being asked if you would rather pay more now and get the projects paid for, or you agree it would be better to use bond funds to pay the bill over time. Now, bonding does cost more in the long run in terms of the overall price, but the impact on wastewater bills is less right off the jump. And finally, mayors will be decided in several cities across our state tomorrow, including in Caldwell. Mayor Garrett Nancolis, who served for the city of Caldwell for 24 years, is not seeking a re-election. So for the first time in a long time, there's going to be a new mayor in Caldwell, and 5 people are hoping to fill the seat. Voters in several other cities, including Nampa, Garden City, New Meadows, Cary, Ketchum, Idaho City, Notice, Challis, Stanley, Glens Ferry, Gooding, Wendell, Hayburn, Homedale, Payette, and Hollister, they will all see a mayoral race on the ballot tomorrow. Now, there are a few mayoral elections that are uncontested, including in Horseshoe Bend, Greenleaf, Melba, Burley, and Jerome. And per the new Idaho elections law, uncontested elections do not have to appear on the ballot, meaning if you live in an area and there is an uncontested election, even for the position of mayor, it may not appear on your ballot. And there are several other races and ballot issues that will be on the ballot tomorrow. And for a complete list of what you are voting on, you can go right now and check out the KTVB voter guide. And we make it really easy. All you got to do is actually text the word vote to 208-321-5614. We will send you a link directly to your phone there, and you can actually go through the voter guide. And I know people ask, is it just for the city of Boise? Is it just for Ada County? This is statewide. You can get everything you need in the KTVB voter guide. Of note, the polls are open tomorrow, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and you can actually go find your polling place by visiting the Idaho Secretary of State office's website. If you have an absentee ballot that you forgot to send in via mail, it must be dropped off at the Ada County Elections Office no later than 8 p.m. tomorrow. If you're not in Ada County, same goes for any county. You got to get that in before 8 p.m. And if you're not registered to vote in Idaho, you are allowed to do that at the polls. Make sure to bring your ID. One other quick note. If for some reason you voted at the same place for a long time, double check that your polling location is the same this year. There are a handful, I should say, that have been moved over the last year. You put your absentee ballot in the mail, and then what happens next? Well, depending on where you live, it could pass through a machine. Now in its second year of existence, meant to handle tens of thousands of mail-in ballots on election night. And you're going to need a machine to contact us. Probably a much different one. Maybe try your cell phone and text us what's on your mind. The number's on your screen, 208-321-5614. Maybe it's an election-related question or a comment about something you saw on the show. Whatever it is, make sure to include your name and the hashtag the 208. We'll share some of your responses at the end of the show. Ever wonder what happens to your ballot after you mail it in or you put it in an election drop box? We know it gets processed behind the scenes, sure, but last year, Ada County actually installed a brand new system specifically to help with the overwhelming number of absentee ballots they received because of COVID. Now, it's a state-of-the-art machine that takes on a heavy workload. In the Ada County Clerk's office, they were able to secure a special COVID election grant from the federal government last year to help pay for the $500,000 monstrosity. Right before last year's election, I was able to go behind the scenes to watch it all work and to see really what happens behind the scenes over at the elections office when they open your mail-in ballot.
Honestly, I wouldn't want to imagine running this election without this machine.
Ask anyone on the Ada County elections team and they'll tell you the same thing. This machine, nicknamed Bessie, has a lot of lights and gadgets which look cool, but what makes this machine so valuable? Well, it processes thousands and thousands of absentee ballots that all used to be done by hand.
It allows us to actually scan the ballots in and take a picture of the ballots when we first get them in. It also date and time stamps the ballots, which then we can start the receiving process after that.
Saul Seiler is the Ada County elections director. He says the Ada County ballot business for Bessie is booming.
We just eclipsed the 50,000 mark today, and we actually probably got about another 10,000 in-house today.
The ballot process of taking in and sorting every single ballot is very technical, but the bottom line,
this is a very big time saver. We would have 30 to 40 staff members in right now just trying to date and timestamp items. This allows us to save multiple hours, and it ensures accuracy at a level that we didn't have before.
Every ballot needs to be verified, logged, and filed so votes can be sorted by precinct. Of course, every ballot will have the presidential election on it, but there are lots of local races that need to be sorted so that they're ready to be counted on election night. Each ballot runs through this machine 3 times.
The first time is simply taking a picture of the signature, but also scanning the barcode. Second, it is looking for the barcode and separating out things that maybe we have a question on the signature or there isn't a signature on the ballot. And then the third pass, we know all those ballots have been validated, and at that pass, we take it down to the precinct level.
As Saul mentioned, the machine captures signatures on the ballot so the election team can compare it to what's on file. Every signature is validated by a real person. And no offense to all the human members of the election team, but this machine will move a lot faster on the more than 140,000 absentee ballots that were issued in the county.
The machine, if it's running full speed, can run about 20,000 pieces an hour.
With the record amount of absentee ballot returns, the machine helps speed up the daunting process.
We used to actually have to hand scan every barcode before we could start the signature process.
Still, though, the incredible number of absentee ballots for the 2020 November election provides a challenge.
It's a little overwhelming when you first see it, but we've got the systems down in place where we can accommodate that.
Simply put, the team here in Idaho's most populated county is elated to have Bessie, the marvelous machine.
It would be a very hard logistical challenge, so this is a real lifesaver for us.
It really is marvelous. And during last year's November general election, over 141,000 absentee ballots were requested in Ada County. And to put this into perspective, so far this year, about 9,100 absentee ballots have been requested in Ada County. We'll be right back. Anyone still on a sugar high from last night? I know there are some M&Ms at my house that are terrified for me to get home. The more serious question though, anyone go out first thing this morning to snag all the leftover candy still sitting on the store shelves? I gotta tell you, a lot of it's 50% off. That's called trick-or-treating as an adult, because apparently dressing up and going door to door as an adult, frowned upon. Except for when you're a kid dressed up as an adult, and a meteorologist to be exact, which is exactly what these cousins did. Check this out. Jessica Hawkins shared these pictures on the Near Me portion of the KTVB app yesterday. Go download that right now, very helpful. She says that the two boys decided to dress up as Larry and Rick back in 2010. That was 11 years ago, believe it or not. And this year, the pair recreated those iconic costumes, and boy, oh boy, did they nail it. Well done. Anyone see a Brian Holmes costume last night? Oh, that would have been very scary.
I'm surprised that wasn't your costume, Joe. Maybe
I'm not
next
tall
year.
enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, we do have rain showers that are moving through southwest Idaho now, already stretching up into the mountain areas as well. But the Treasure Valley, wet during the drive home. All of this continues into the overnight hours, but we will start to dry out by daybreak tomorrow morning, though we are left with a little bit of fog to start Tuesday. Most of Tuesday should be dry for us. Partly cloudy to mostly cloudy skies at times. And then into Wednesday, a similar story. Breaks of clouds and sunshine peeking through. A great day to do some fall yard cleanup. We know we have a lot of cleanup to do after the wet weather that we saw in the second half of October before our next round of rain arrives for us for Thursday. Highs tomorrow, similar to where we are today. Upper 50s, close to 60 degrees for the Treasure Valley, upper 40s for our mountain valleys. And here's a look at the 7-day forecast. Again, a couple of dry days ahead, Tuesday and Wednesday, before more rain arrives on Thursday. Also, daylight saving time ends this weekend. Joe?
Well, hopefully everyone was able to get outside this week and enjoy what is likely to have been one of the last warm weekends of the year. Maybe you spent your time outside raking leaves. Good weekend to do that. Seems like they all decided just to jump off the tree over the last few days. Now, all those bright and bold fall colors, though, they lit up the city of Boise for the last 2.5 weeks or so. Now it's nearly all gone, which is a shame. But let's take one final look at what has to be one of the best years for the fall foliage in the Treasure Valley. And we're going to show you the pictures that you captured out there in the wild and posted on the Idaho Weather Watchers Facebook page. Okie doke, folks, you know how we end the half hour here. We got some of your questions. This one says, I just got my ballot in the mail. Do I have to use it or can I just go to my polling place? This is a great question. If you have an absentee ballot, a ballot through the mail that you haven't used and you want to go vote tomorrow, some good advice that we get from the past from county clerks is to destroy your mail-in ballot, rip it up, spoil it, and then you just go vote in person tomorrow on election day. Now, they'll know if you voted absentee and in person. They have a system to double check that, so don't try and do that. But if you want to go vote in person tomorrow, you can rip up your mail-in ballot. And for those of you wondering, where's Brian Holmes? He'll be back later this week. Until now, though, we'll see you tomorrow.